Okay, good evening and welcome to this Portugal Calling webinar from Expats Portugal. Good evening, everybody from all over the world. So do let us know where you are, who you are in the chat. That'd be fantastic. And welcome to you, Jason and Shane from Holborn. We're going to break it down into three sections tonight. A little bit of presentation, not too much presentation, and more chat, plenty of opportunities for you to ask questions. So the first section will be an introduction to Holborn. We'd like to know who we're dealing with this evening. And then after that, what is the Golden Visa, the specifics on the product and the process, and then more into property examples and how the project works. So Jason, I think you're kicking us off this evening. Welcome to you. Great to have you here.
Yeah, thanks, Kel. Thanks for having us on. It is a pleasure. It's our first webinar with yourselves. So hopefully, between myself and Shane, we can add some good value and give you a good understanding of, first of all, who we are, like you're saying. Then we'll talk you through hopefully everything that you need to know about Portugal's Golden Visa. So just to introduce who we are, if anyone's not familiar with Holborn Assets, by trade, Cal, we're actually a wealth management company. We specialise working with expats all over the world. We're actually now one of the biggest financial management companies globally, and I'm based here in Portugal myself, and I specialise working with expats coming into Portugal with their move, and generally around the finances and the structuring of their assets and the tax planning to make sure they enjoy life once they get here, really. But yeah, we're very much a global firm. We cater for all nationalities in over 100 different countries worldwide. I've been in the industry now for around 15 years, and I've been in Portugal for about 18 months now, in Albufeira, which is my personal favourite, of course, of all the different options that everyone has when moving to Portugal. Previous to here, I was over in Spain for 5 years. I was there in Spain for 5 years. Prior to that, back in Manchester, which isn't quite as exciting as either Spain or Portugal, for that matter. Unfortunately, I've not picked up any Spanish or Portuguese just yet, or at least nothing that you would actually understand if I gave it a try. But yeah, certainly know everything about the Portuguese Golden Visa, and hopefully all the questions that everyone may have. To help me out is Shane. So part of the Holborn Group is the Citizenship and Residency Program, which is a service designed first and foremost to basically search out the top investment properties in Portugal for our clients, of course, that qualify for the Golden Visa. First and foremost, it is an investment service. So we're not just looking for any old property to get the visa. We're looking for good, solid developers that perhaps will pay a good rental return. There will be additional incentives such as buyback options once the passport's been granted. There may be other incentives to help towards the taxes involved with purchasing property as well. And once we've found that property, it is very much an A to Z service to help our clients go right through the process, right from applying for the residency and the citizenship after 5 years, but also taking care of the legal work and, of course, the full property management as well. So it can be very much hands-off, and we don't actually need you to come over to Portugal until we physically need you here for your biometrics when they take your fingerprints. Other than that, though, I'm sure Shane will talk us through that more shortly. Shane heads up that part of Holborn, which is the part which everyone is here to hear more about. Between us, yeah, we'll talk you through the process in quite some detail, what to expect from start to finish. Secondly, we'll have a look at the requirements to meet the Golden Visa. And what's needed to be approved, and I'll also do a brief section on the tax regime in Portugal, which is one of the many reasons people choose Portugal over other parts of the EU, which is a tax regime called NHR, which can offer some particularly good tax reductions for new residents on their overseas income as well. So I'll cover that off. Following that, yeah, we're going to run you through a number of different properties that we feel are some of the top qualifying property investments in Portugal at the moment. They will vary in price. They have different incentives from the sellers and the developers. And also in the very near future, we was hoping to be able to show everyone this afternoon, but there's been a slight delay. But there will be an option to achieve the Golden Visa with a property here in the Algarve with just €285,000 which is incredibly hard to come by. So we will have that in due course, and we will hopefully give you a bit of a sneak peek on that as well this afternoon. Once we finish, yeah, we'll do the questions and answers. I mean, by all means, we can do questions as we go through, Carl. I'll let you field those by all means, and we shall do our best to take them on.
Terrific.
Is that all right?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Just say a few hellos. We've got Sean from Cheshire. I think might have been stimulated by your mention of Manchester earlier on. Good evening to you, Sean, to Jen, to Daryl from Washington, D.C., Mo in California, Anna in Cascais, of course, Trevor in Lisbon in the capital, Lydia in Canada, bon dia, Steve M in Minnesota tonight, Mike in San Francisco, Joseph in Maryland, and Mark in Hendersonville. Come back and say a few more hellos later. And yes, as has been said, if you want to chip in with questions along the way, that's great. I'll do my best to field them. And if you've got questions of a more personal nature that you don't want on an immortalized recording, we can do a hands up session after we've stopped the recording later on. So back to you then, Jason. Cheers.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, let's just give a brief overview on Portugal. I don't think it needs too much of an introduction, but I'm speaking from experience. Of course, I chose Portugal myself, and although we offer a number of different citizenship programs in many different countries worldwide, Portugal is naturally my favorite. I moved to Portugal with my fiance about 18 months back, really for a number of reasons. For those that haven't been to Portugal, or those that have as well, you'll know that Portugal has possibly the best beaches anywhere in the world, literally straight off the Caribbean, and some of the beaches along the coast are fantastic and much better. Not the stony beaches that I found in Malaga and the like previously. So yeah, it's a great place to come on holiday. The atmosphere is quite incredible. You feel very welcome in Portugal. Again, not anything detrimental towards Spain, but every time I walk into a restaurant in Portugal, everyone's very keen to kind of help out, offering directions, asking how they can be of more help. Very, very welcome for English speakers, which didn't quite feel the same when I was over in Spain. I think it has something to do with the fact that the Portuguese study English in schools, so they quite welcome the chance to practice their English, or their American, of course, when you're with them. We came on holiday to Albufeira, Carl, about 5 years back. We stayed on Albufeira Marina, which is, again, it's amazing. We fell in love with Portugal from that holiday, and one of the reasons that we came across. Further to that, let's not forget the tax incentives. I'm fortunate to have an income from outside of Portugal, and a big encouragement for me at the time, as with many of our clients, is the NHR tax regime, which allows some significant reductions on income tax, depending on the certain sources of income, which I'll cover off shortly. But that had a big factor. And lastly, the location, certainly in the Algarve, we are just 2 hours away from Lisbon. We're 2 hours away back to Spain in Seville, which is an amazing city as well. And you can get pretty much anywhere on the south coast within half an hour either way. So you really do not struggle for things to do and places to visit. And of course, the sun shines 300 days a year, Carl. So no matter where you head, you're not going to be doing too bad for a suntan. Don't take mine as an example, though. I don't really see the sun, unfortunately, anymore. But yeah, if you can get out in the sunshine, you'll pick up a nice tan pretty quickly. So yeah, loads of reasons. Other than that, it has some of the very best healthcare systems anywhere in the world. It has one of the best rated education systems in the world as well. Portugal is officially the fourth most peaceful country in the world as well, which is very welcome in my job as well. So when I do manage to leave the house or the office, the Algarve is a great place to relax, which is perhaps a little bit different to the other city centres like Lisbon and Porto, of course. But for all the reasons above, the statistics for people moving to Portugal are increasing exponentially. We're seeing a huge uptake from American citizens over the past 12 months as well. Not exclusively, of course, to Americans, but there does seem to be something happening where Americans are looking for a bit of a backup option to retire to, perhaps in the future. But yeah, not exclusively to Americans. Around that, great place to invest into property. We've seen property prices increase now with an average of over 7% per year over the past 10 years. Last year, they increased by nearly 14%, which is phenomenal. And they're not showing any signs of slowing down anytime soon. So yeah, great place to be investing as well. Oh, other than that, though, moving on to, I'll give you a bit of an overview on NHR. So, yeah, not the most exciting of topics when we're talking about Portugal and holidays, but an important topic nonetheless, and it is one of the reasons why we see a number of clients coming into Portugal as well. So back in 2009, Portugal released a unique tax regime designed to attract the world's leading talent and, of course, wealth into the country, and it's worked very, very well. And the way it works is that should you be successful with applying for NHR, you may be entitled to some significant reductions on your overseas income. So I've just kind of bullet pointed some of the main areas of NHR. For those that are still working, whether it's employed or self-employed in a particularly high-skilled role, or in one that is, shall we say, benefiting the Portuguese economy, you may qualify for a very low flat rate of tax of just 20% compared to the progressive rates of tax normally within Portugal. For those that are drawing a pension income, so if you're looking to retire to Portugal and you're going to be drawing from whether it be a state pension or a private or occupational pension, on the basis that the source country has a tax treaty with Portugal, which most countries do, you can apply for just a rate of 10%. It used to be 0%, but of course they must have felt they were being a little bit too generous, but still kept it quite low at 10%. For some certain income, you can enjoy complete tax exemption. So for those fortunate enough to be able to draw dividends, whether it be from a private company, whether it be from an investment portfolio, perhaps, you can actually draw that completely tax-free in Portugal for the first 10 years. By the way, these are all for the first 10 years, where you can have these concessions, and also rental income. So if you are leaving a property back home, if you're renting your house out in order to move abroad, or whether you have an existing portfolio, it works particularly well, again, under NHR when drawing that income. Last and not least, for those kind of after the NHR expires after 10 years, there are ways of which you can structure your investments and savings into what is a Portuguese approved investment vehicle, which actually will allow you up to a 60% discount on your lifelong income as well, past that 10-year period. So with the right financial planning and some good advice, you can structure yourself very well and maximize your income whilst you're, as you can see with those two people there sat in the background, enjoying the sunset. So yeah, that's the NHR. The general process for NHR is relatively straightforward. You do need to have an address in Portugal. You need to have an address that you fully intend to live in and reside. Once you have an address there, then we can start to put the wheels in motion. We need to then go through the criteria to make sure that you will qualify for NHR, which is a relatively straightforward conversation. It takes maybe 5 or 10 minutes to work out whether or not you tick those boxes. I will help you to get a tax number in Portugal as well, and you'll have a unique tax number as an NHR resident also. And then from that point, we can register you as tax resident. Now, just to quickly clarify the difference between becoming resident and becoming tax resident, they are not the same thing. So until you physically move to Portugal, regardless of whether you have applied for the Golden Visa and regardless of whether you've bought a property, unless you physically move to Portugal, nothing changes with your tax, just to clarify. However, when you get to the point where you physically set sail to Portugal and your feet are on the ground, after a certain period of time, or at the point of declaring yourself tax resident in Portugal, that's when things may change. And at that point is when we start to integrate NHR and the tools available to make sure your taxes are in order. But at that point, yeah, we apply for the status, and with your first tax return, then you'll have assistance for that to be done at, of course, the most efficient tax rates possible.
Can I ask you a quick question there? I know
Just
a quickie, there will be more later, but the registered address that you need, that's at the beginning of the process. Am I right?
Correct. For the NHR, you'd need to show that you're living in Portugal, correct? So there's no benefits with it if you don't live here. So once you're here and you have an address, you can then apply.
Okay, and that's a tenancy or a lease similarly in the way that when somebody's applying for a D7, a legally sort of finances registered lease would be ideal for that.
Correct.
Yep.
That's right.
Excellent. Thank you.
Very welcome. But that's the exciting part over with on the tax front, and now over to Shane to talk about the Golden Visa process.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure how I'm going to be as exciting as tax, but I'll give it a bash. Now, the Golden Visa, I suppose that's why we're all here. The Golden Visa was started in 2012. Since then, there's been a couple of changes. They've done two main changes, but primarily what the Golden Visa is, it's for a substantial economic investment, the country is offering you a residency. Slightly different to the D7 in the fact that you don't physically need to be within the country. The minimum stay is primarily why our clients are looking at the Golden Visa. You only have to spend 14 days every 2 years there. So effectively, every time you renew your Golden Visa at the end of the period, you need to prove that you have been there 14 days. And for the fact that you just have to have a property, minimum sort of input is required. Now, the Golden Visa is offered to anyone who is a non-EU citizen. And yes, now all us British guys are one of those kind of people because of Brexit. So anyone who's a non-EU citizen can apply as long as you do not hold a criminal record. As far as family members that you can add, so there are 3 generations that you can add on. You're looking at your spouse, whether you're married or not, as long as we can prove you are living together. We're looking at your children, no age limit there, as long as we can prove that they're financially dependent on you. To prove financial dependency within Portugal, they have to be enrolled in full-time study. So fairly simple. With this offering, we are also able to include parents. So if your parents are financially dependent on you, fairly simple. If they're above the age of 65, we no longer need to prove dependency because it's automatically assumed. So the whole family can come along to Portugal and complete the Golden Visa together. Now, as I said to you, there have been some changes throughout the years. Initially, it used to be a 6-year term. It has decreased down to 5 years. Initially, you had to prove that you had formed some sort of a connection with the country. Now they have to almost prove the opposite, so they have to prove that you haven't formed a connection with the country. And then at the beginning of this year, they changed your property requirements. So throughout the years, property has always been your main sort of investment opportunity. Obviously, with the property growing at the rates that Jason was mentioning, it's quite a nice investment, and people always generally like to see, touch, and understand their investment a little bit better. Now, what they did at the beginning of the year is they said that in majority of your main cities, so Porto, Lisbon, Algarve, actually most of your coastline, you cannot now buy a property that is registered as a residential property. So you can only really buy commercial property, which isn't really a problem because lucky for us, Portugal has a great tourism industry. So therefore, we take advantage of things like hotels, apartment hotels, and that sort of type of investment. So we're still buying property, just a little bit of different type. You can still buy residential property in your inland areas and places like Madeira. I know with Madeira, it's a little bit of a tricky because Madeirans don't think they're Portuguese and Portuguese don't think Madeirans are Portuguese either. So a little bit of a different opportunity there, but they do qualify under residential. Now, your qualifying criteria are 4 separate price structures when you come to real estate. The first price structure you're looking at is for a new build property. So this is anything younger than 30 years. There you're looking at a 500,000 in your main cities. These are places like Lisbon and Porto. And if you're looking at a renovated property, so these are properties that are older than 30 years and are being renovated or what they call rejuvenated, then you can come in 350,000. Now, if you move either of these properties into what they call a less densely populated region, so a lot of the Algarve actually falls within some of those categories. And generally, that's less than 100 people, residents per square kilometer. We can decrease both of those by 20%. So that's where that magic number 280,000 comes in. And for a new build, 400,000. A lot of numbers being thrown out here, sorry. As far as the funds go, there is a fund option, and it has become one of the main opportunities. And the reason for it is at the end of last year, it was actually 350,000 entry point. So we found a lot of people were taking advantage of your lower entry point, obviously not having to pay any transfer fees or any kind of property taxes on that. So it was growing quite nicely. The beginning of the year, the government changed that one as well. So they increased it from 350 to 500,000 entry point. Now, although property funds are very, very good, as well as venture capital funds, obviously this year has been a little bit of turmoil when it comes to the markets. So a lot of the clients are a little bit apprehensive when it comes to investing in the funds, but they are there if we require. If that's your flavor, we can assist you there too. At any point, please feel free to stop me and ask me any questions should you require.
Thanks.
So that's primarily to get your residency. The process is fairly simple. Now, the reason why the process is fairly simple is because we basically do everything for you. During the process of application, you'll only need to be in Portugal for 1 day out of the entire process. Everything else, from tax numbers or NIF numbers to bank accounts to application process, can be done remotely, and we'll assist you with that. The biometric appointment, that unfortunately we can't bypass because we can't take your fingerprints with us. So we'll need you and the whole family to come across to Portugal, enjoy the sunshine, one of the 300 days, and generally go through our process where the lawyers will be with you, verify you are who you are, get the final validation, and we can then move on to the card issues, which then help you to live, work, and study within Portugal. And that's the thing about residency. Residency gives you the same rights as any other Portuguese citizen. You just cannot vote, run for office, or utilize their passport yet. Okay. The residency card itself also gives you a little bit of benefit for those coming from countries that don't have nice passports. It gives you visa-free access to all Schengen areas. Right, so you can stay in 90 days in a 180-day period, which is quite nice. Now, the important part of this is majority of our clients want to get the citizenship, because along with the citizenship comes the fact of the EU passport. So one passport effectively becomes 27. Now, the rest of us English guys, as I said to you before, because of Brexit, we've lost that advantage. So we are seeing a massive sort of interest from our British colleagues that are wanting to also do this process because of this fact that they can't retire within Europe because of the fact that they can't live there anymore. Right? So Golden Visa, to be able to move it across to citizenship, you need to renew your Golden Visa every 2 years. So in year 2 and year 4, you renew your Golden Visa. In year 5, we'll generally apply for your citizenship, and if all goes to plan, in year 6, you should be getting it. Right? Fairly straightforward. This is all registered within the Portuguese laws. So not just me saying it, you can actually, it's actually legislated. Now, to be able to qualify for citizenship, you need to hold your residency for 5 years. With the Golden Visa, you need to do your minimum stay of 14 days every 2 years. And then the biggie. So this is the one that everyone gets a little bit nervous about, the A2 language test. Not the end of the world, I promise. Most of my clients are taking about 6.5 months to come to the right level to be able to pass this test. It's a 2-hour exam. 50% of it is verbal. The other 50% of it is written, mostly multiple choice. And the verbal, it's basic. So a 12-year-old child will write the same as an adult. So just to give you that understanding. Older grandparents and younger children, they'll be looked at case by case, but in some cases they'll either be bypassed so they won't have to write the exam, or they will do an A1 language test, so make it a little bit easier for them. Right. So that's generally what you need to do. But once you have the passport, you now have the 4th or 5th best passport in the world. It's actually the same level as British passport. So it's 187 countries. I know it says 185 here. We were lucky enough to get an extra 2. So it's 187 countries, visa-free, which is the same as a British passport. But again, I keep saying better than a British passport because you can live, work, and study in any of the EU countries. Okay, so pretty much the map there, anywhere in green is visa-free travel. In South America, don't look at that one. It does say it's a Schengen country. I mean, an EU country, obviously not. But the EU countries are highlighted in blue.
Excellent. Thank you. Just with the A2 test there was some talk a little while ago, or it might just been a bit of gossip and rumor, but that they were going to drop the A2 Portuguese language test. Have you heard about that?
I think it's more hope than fact.
Okay, fair enough. Let's move on.
I'm hoping on that one, Shane. I'm hoping they do drop that. We'll be okay, then, won't we?
Jason was tuning in then as we were talking.
That's news to me.
Sorry.
Yeah. Now, the nice thing about it is if you look at the rest of the world and you look at places like Germany, before you can even get any kind of residency, whether it be permanent or short-term, you have to actually write the German test then and before. Yeah. At least with Portugal, it allows you to live there for a period of time and be able to then write it.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So they're helping us a little bit.
One other thing on this slide, application for citizenship / permanent residence. You don't have to become a citizen, do you? Can you carry on being a permanent resident and not go for the passport if you wanted to? I know that there are many benefits for doing so, but can you continue to just be a permanent resident rather than go?
You can. I mean, in essence, you can continue with the Golden Visa for as long as you want, as long as you're renewing every 2 years. Okay. But with the permanent residence and the citizenship, now the primary difference there is just the passport. To get to either one of them is the same process. But the reason why they have the permanent residence there is you have certain countries like India, like Germany, that don't allow dual passports. So instead of their home country having to give up their passport, their Indian passport, for instance, you can remain as a permanent resident and not have to shift over to citizenship. Okay. Majority of our client base, because it's the same to qualify for both, will generally apply for both. Whichever one comes first, we now no longer need to adhere to the Golden Visa.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that.
Okay. So on to, I suppose, the exciting part, the projects we have at the moment. So as I said to you in the beginning, we have projects starting from about 280 all the way up to the 500,000 mark. Currently in Lagos, very important to say Lagos as opposed to Lagos, because I'm not telling you anything in Nigeria. This property will be finished in 2024. It's going to be 2 separate hotels, both of them run by the Hilton. It's going to be a 3-star and a 4-star hotel. Currently, it's a train station, so is older than 30 years and it will be rejuvenated, I suppose. But location-wise with this is absolutely amazing. As you know, southern parts, more Mediterranean, warmer seas. This specific project will give you the access for the Golden Visa, but at the same time, the 280,000, we do have what they call a buyback agreement. Basically, what that means is the same price you purchased the building for is the same price you receive back. So your capital preservation is 100%. It doesn't, unfortunately, give you a rental yield because the property is only going to be finished in 2024. So what we've done in the meantime is we've negotiated with the developer, and he's agreed to pay your IMT tax as well as your VAT. Now, important to understand, IMT tax and stamp duty is generally going to be 7.3% on a commercial property of the price, the total price. So in a lot of the situations like this, the property that the pricing that the developer will pay is around about 35,000. Which if you pull it over a 5-year period, it works out to be about 3% per year. A little bit different that way. But in addition to that, they will also give you 7 days per year in any of their actual hotels. Now, these guys have 43 hotels throughout Portugal, and they range from the Hilton to the Marriott and a couple of boutique hotels. So it gives you a nice opportunity to travel all throughout Portugal and stay in a comfortable environment anywhere you go. This is generally your 280,000, and this is where we're seeing a massive uptick in clients' interest. Clients are looking at coming in, they're more thinking with their heads now as opposed to their hearts, and they're looking at more of a financial structure. Right? If you're now looking at you wanting a little bit of a return, we do have the options for you. So this property here is now the new Lisboa airport, and obviously going to be in Lisbon. It's going to be a 4-star hotel, offering client base the normal amenities as far as restaurants, swimming pools, amazing rooms go. But for a client that's investing into the business, what they're also offering is the 3% guaranteed per year return. In addition, they're also offering the buyback agreement. So again, your capital is preserved. You have your return and your guaranteed return, capital. So as an investment product, very, very safe. Again, this product is offering 7 days per year in any of their hotels. So the first two projects that we're talking about now are hotel investments. So not necessarily an individual title deed, but a title deed the same. So you'll have one title deed with all the independent owners on that one. Right. Our second building is slightly different. This is in an area in the middle of Lisbon. The nice thing about this one is the location that it's actually got. The name of the area has just absolutely slipped my mind slightly. But Times Magazine has just voted it the coolest area in Europe to live. So very, very good location, location, location. It's going to be 72 different apartments. So current building going to be renovated, put 72 separate apartments in there. 57 of them are going to be studio apartments. The other 15 are one-bedroom apartments. This doesn't come with your buyback agreements or anything on those terms. What this one is more for an investor that is looking for a longer term type of investment. So predicted growth on this capital, you're looking at about 6% per year, which is quite sort of held back if you think about it, because last year alone, the same area, well, the whole of Portugal did 13.8% return on a property. So very good forecasting. You can utilize this project 7 days a year. And if you are looking for parking, I can even sell you a parking spot, right, which you can rent out for €125 per month if you wanted to. So lots and lots of benefits when it comes to this project. A project which has been very, very successful to us. Generally speaking, the reason for it, and you'll see by the numbers, you'll understand why. But this is, again, down south in the Algarve. It's a property that is ready built. In fact, 8.3%, 8.3 out of 10 on the bookings.com. So you can stay there tonight if you wanted to. But this sits in the area of Holborn, actually one of Jason's favorite areas, in between Portimao and Lagos. My main thing about Portimao is obviously that's where the racetrack is. So if you want to watch MotoGP or Formula One, the place to be. This specific property, we've managed to negotiate a nice return. It's 5.2% return guaranteed for 6 years. Well, again, this project is going to be an individual title deed. So separate to what the initial ones were, but separate title deed. So no matter what happens, you now own your own apartment. The return is paid up front, so far up front that you can actually use it as part of your capital. So instead of having a building that you're having to pay 400,000 for, including the return, you only have to pay out 306,000 from your own pocket. At a later stage, it does give you a buyback agreement. So once you've obtained your citizenship or your residency, the buyback agreement is put in place. And that means that your 400,000 will come back to you, right? Primarily, if you put the numbers together, at the end of the day, we're including costs, government fees, all that inclusive, this will you'll walk away with still money in your pocket as opposed to spending anything going forward. The only problem with this is we are very limited to how many opportunities we have. A lot of the apartments have already sold out. So if this is an option that you want to go for, let Jason know. We can try and move on it as quickly as possible. Then on to the last and probably my most favorite opportunity. It's in an area called Orbidas, along the Silver Coast, just outside Lisbon. PGA golf course designed by Sevi Ballesteros, and as we know, golf is all year round. So no matter what season it is, you can still go play. It's going to have, well, it does have a 5-star hotel already built on it, designed by someone called Philippe Stark, famous designer. And these individual apartments are based just in front of the hotel. So you have all the amenities from the hotel, the spa, the restaurants, the bars, all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, you have your own private space. Right? So the 1-bedroom apartments currently are going for €500,000. The €500,000 is attracting a return of at least 5%. Okay, the returns go from between 5% and 5.25%. Which is very nice again because it's been paid up front. So you can reduce your capital outlay down from 500 to a starting price of about €365,000. 397 is for a specific apartment, but 365 is where we would start. Your buyback, however, is always done on your initial price, so that's 500,000. This project is also nice because you can utilize it free of charge for 6 weeks per year. Right. The buyback agreement, as I said, will give you a 500,000 back, but that's up to you. You may decide you want to keep the property, and in this case, you can. The buyback is optional, and moving forward, you can take advantage of the capital growth or have the security of the buyback. So that's very quick, very short, but it's giving you an idea of what sort of properties we have available. I suppose the next question is, we've thrown a lot of information at you in a very short period of time. Are there perhaps any questions that Jason or I can answer?
I was hoping you'd change that photo there, Shane. I think I took that back in the back in the 50s. But,
excellent. Well, thank you both. Thank you both for that. We do have some sort of general questions about the Golden Visa that you could perhaps help us with here. Trevor asking, are Lisbon properties that have commercial on the first floor and residential on the floor above excluded currently? Would you know the answer to that?
So it's depending on the individual apartment. So when we're looking at the building, it's going to be registered in 2 different formats. So if there's a tourism license on a certain floor, that specific floor will have a separate title deed.
Yeah.
So it won't be the entire building, it'll be the individual apartments. We've had it in the past where we sold apartment blocks, and certain of those individual apartments are registered under a normal residential license, and we are not able, we can sell as many as we want, but they won't qualify for the Golden Visa.
Okay, all right, thank you for that. And on the NHR, Sean was asking, how many days do you need to spend in Portugal to qualify for the NHR, if any?
Yeah, I've just been chatting to Sean actually in the chat, Carl. But yeah, you can apply for NHR as soon as you have an address in Portugal. But it only offers any benefits once you're here full time.
Yeah.
And once you're living here on a permanent basis.
And that means you can go abroad. You don't have a minimum requirement to fulfill at that point.
Not at all. No, as long as you are a permanent tax resident of Portugal, you can apply for NHR.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah, that's right. And that's happened for Portuguese people as well, who've been living abroad for a minimum amount, hasn't it? To come back and take advantage of that. And if you want to stay out of the country after you've got that residency, I think you can still take advantage of the NHR status. So thank you for that question, Sean. That's great. A general question about CEF then. Something that many people are up against who are dealing with coming into Portugal. And I know somebody on the Golden Visa program sued CEF recently to get them to get...
And won.
And won. Wasn't that a great precedent to set? I guess you were keeping your eye on that, Shane.
Yes.
What's your general feeling and view about the situation at CEF then?
So with CEF, I'm not sure how much you know about CEF, but for a long time there was talk about CEF being dissolved. So they were talking about CEF being dissolved and bringing in a new group to basically take over the function. Now, this year, for the first 6 months, we actually had no applications being processed because CEF pretty much took away the application button off of the online system. The new government obviously came in this year, and 6 months later, everything was registered and we're now moving forward. And the new government has put 100% backing behind the Golden Visa program. So they've reinstated CEF on a permanent basis. There's no talk of them dissolving anymore. So there's a little bit more job satisfaction, I suppose. But they understand that the backlog is there. So they've put more resources behind it. And obviously the UK guy who's just sued them, he managed to get his biometric appointment in 10 days now.
Yes.
So it has set a precedent, and obviously being a substantial economic investment, the government knows and understands that there are plenty of other people that can pretty much do the same thing as what this guy's just done. So have lifted their processes, and we are seeing things moving quite fast now. So anyone from last year that had got their pre-approval have now got their biometric appointment, and we're starting to see them processing the rest of it quite quickly.
Very good. Good news. Things moving in the right direction now, which is great. Mo, delighted to hear that. Wow, that's good to know about, Steph, says Mo. Great question from David. This is probably one for you, Jason, on the benefits of being virtually Portuguese. Once you have citizenship, do you qualify for medical? You might want to say a little bit more generally about the medical system. I know you touched on it briefly, Jason.
Medical system is, or the healthcare system is one of the best in Europe, Cal. So, what was the question? Sorry.
Specifically, the question is: once you have citizenship, do you qualify for medical? Basically, once you have residency, you apply for medical care, don't you, with the public system?
Yeah, once you, as long as you keep up to date with social security and your taxes, and you're allowed to live here, then yeah, you're good to go.
Yeah, and just as the great society Portugal is, you won't be refused medical care if you need it in an emergency and turn up at a hospital. So good news there for you, David. I think we'll leave it there for the recording, because I know there are other questions and people might have specific questions about some of the projects that you have spoken about there for us, Shane. So thank you for the time being, Jason and Shane. Thank you very much indeed from Holborn.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ed.